If a week's a long time in politics, just imagine what the last year's been like for Sam Rushworth, who was the newly elected MP for Bishop Auckland this time last year. Well, a couple of days ago, I caught up with him to find out. I'm delighted to welcome to the show this week Bishop Auckland MP Sam Rushworth for a bit of a chat about his first year as a Member of Parliament. But first, I think we need a bit of a condition check on you, because for anybody who hasn't seen, you've been in the wars a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, I've broken my leg in a couple of places, roller skating with the kids of all things. But yeah, it's about 10 days ago since my surgery, so I'm trying to get back to normal life.
Are you any good at being a patient? Are you good at sitting down and keeping quiet? Do you have to be up and about?
Oh, this has been my worst nightmare. I mean, I've been quite lucky. I've hit 41 and I've never broken anything before. But yeah, it's really hard just coming to terms with it when the doctor says you can't do this and you can't do that, but fortunately it is recess from Parliament, so I don't have to keep running around the building, and there's a lot we can do these days through technology. So I'm even having a Zoom surgery this evening and tomorrow as well, so we've got about 8 people lined up to have a chat with me, and of course we can still write letters to ministers and look after their issues. So I'm bearing with it, but I'm not a great patient now.
Let's rewind 12 months or so to you've just been elected as an MP, a first-time MP, and of course you can't prepare for these things because, all right, you were possibly favoured to take the seat, but until the announcement's made, then you're still a candidate. So just take us back, and what was it like suddenly being an MP for this newly drawn constituency?
Gosh, it was a massive challenge. As you say, we couldn't really prepare for it because we didn't know if I was going to win or lose, although we did expect to win, I think, by the state of the polls at the time. So obviously the first thing I had to do was have a conversation with my employer at Durham University and negotiate a leave date. They were very good to me. I basically did a handover. So for the first couple of weeks, I was sort of working on 2 jobs at once, doing a full handover, and then you've got to get down to Westminster, and it is a massive building where the corridors move. People say it's like Hogwarts. It literally is. You'll open a door one day and it's a broom cupboard, and the next day you open it and it seems to be a corridor somewhere. So I spent a good few weeks just getting lost and also just learning the ropes. Like, I've been interested in politics all my life, but actually learning how that place works and how to get stuff done, it's a really steep learning curve.
The settling in process, are you abandoned to your own devices? What sort of help and support is there for a new MP?
They put on a series of mandatory induction sessions every day. I've got to admit, I didn't always find them helpful. I often felt like we were being given the sort of high level stuff that common sense would have told us, but actually what I needed to do is know, where do I find this and how do I do that? And one of the pieces of advice we were given is, don't rush into hiring staff, take your time, get the right people, and that all makes sense. But from day one, you have that responsibility. And every time I check my inbox, in fact, some people knew my email address before I was told what my email address was by the Commons authorities. So the first time I log in, there's already just a shed load of emails. And for the first few weeks, I'm not going to lie, I found it massively tough. I'd go to bed about 2 a.m. Because I'd stay up trying to get through my inbox with no staff. I'd set my alarm again for sort of 6:37 and pick back up again. And so those first few weeks, I think, were the toughest I've ever had.
Yeah, and so over time, obviously you've got your staff and your office together, and you've now got the office in Bishop as well. So what's day-to-day life like now that you've settled in a bit as the constituency MP?
So just saying, we've recruited a team of staff. You get a budget for about 5 full-time staff. I've spent most of that on my constituency office because we represent an area where there's a lot of need, but also where we've got some real goals to try to regenerate parts of the constituency that need it, and that actually takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of people meeting with the council, meeting with businesses, and so day to day, I guess. Well, when we're in Parliament, when Parliament's sitting, Monday through Thursday, we are down there. I'm down in London. I try to get in the chamber 2 or 3 times a week. I think a lot of people judge us by how much we spend in the parliamentary chamber, but actually, that is only a fraction of the job. So sometimes we will go there. We'll go to participate in debates and to ask questions of ministers, to make our arguments for things that affect the lives of our constituents. But then there's also a lot that goes on outside of the House of Commons chamber, even in Westminster. A lot of meeting where you have constituents who come down and meet with you, a lot of businesses. So one of the things I'm interested in looking at for our area is things like geothermal, how to exploit the opportunities with lithium, looking at the energy transition, making sure that local businesses can be in the supply chains. So there's a lot of work that needs to go into that. And there's also there's quite a lot of upskilling as well. You have to sort of be an expert in everything. And of course we're not, right? There's vast policy areas that I don't know a lot about. I didn't know much about transport, and I know I need to improve bus services, but it started with me having to actually learn, how do bus services operate? How does franchising work? Really helpfully, I went and visited Weardale Bus Service, a local family business, and they were super helpful in giving me the information that I needed to help them to provide a better service. But there's a huge amount of work even down there, and then of course there's your constituents who've got casework. There's a lot of stuff we do that no one ever knows about because we're fighting on behalf of an individual. And some of the things over the last year that I think have been the biggest successes are actually when I look back look at people whose lives we've been able to improve for the better through the work that we've done. That doesn't go on social media. It's just between us and them. And then you get all the invitations to visit schools and businesses and charities, and so it's a very full-on job, but it's also really rewarding, and I really enjoy getting to meet with people and see the progress that we're making.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it there. One of the sort of criticisms, I suppose, is the fact that nothing ever gets done. I mean, are you able to look back on the last 12 months and think of, yes, I've achieved this, I've achieved that?
Right, and that is, I think that's a fair criticism, and I'm friends with some of the Conservative MPs, and I think some of them are actually enjoying being in opposition and watching us in government because they're looking at us going, see, it's not as easy as you think, is it, in opposition? And there is some truth in that when you're campaigning for something, it's easy really to be an opposition politician and to sort of because all you have to do is point at a problem and blame it on whoever is in power at the time. And but actually change is slow and it's difficult and it's really frustrating at times. But yeah, I think we've seen some progress in the last 12 months, but also I'm excited for the next couple of years because I can also see that we're lining some things up where the public aren't going to feel it and see it yet, but I can see positive change coming. I mean, look, just on an individual level, I talk about casework, where we get in. Someone came to see me in a surgery, a pensioner in Shildon a few months ago, and she was living on a new housing estate where every single house has basically a faulty heating system, and these poor pensioners are having to pay £400 or £500 a month for their heating. And she came to ask, is there anything I can do to help? And even said to me, and it upset me, but she said, they all told me I was wasting my time coming to see you, and there was nothing that you'd be able to do about it. And I thought, well, that got me going. I thought, well, let's see what we can do here. And we've been working with the housing association that owns these houses. We've managed to negotiate much enhanced compensation. It's still not enough. So the housing association has gone much further than they were going. We're still saying you need to go further. But we're also talking to a big energy supplier about refitting all of their heating systems. And that's going to make a real change in those people's lives. And it's not something that everyone's going to see visibly, but it's there. There's just little things like reaching out to ministers and supporting funding applications for the new community centre in Middleton and Teesdale, or the work that they're doing at the Weardale Methodist Chapel. There's things where there's small local wins that mean something to a handful of people in that area, but you are making it happen. And then there's a lot that I have to say I'm disappointed in as well. I've got disappointments about the progress we're making. I really want to see a transformation of our high street. It's difficult economically because basically it's once you've put money into a building, the building isn't worth what you've put into it, and that's the case all over the country in high streets. There's not enough money to go around, and so we're all scrambling for pots of money. Some other campaign wins, if I may. I campaigned from the very start of my time as an MP for free school meals. And at the time, that was not party policy. It wasn't in our manifesto. I was slightly nervous about the amount of times I was doing it. I was in a rally outside on Parliament Square, and I was thinking, the whip's going to think I'm a rebel for doing this. But look what we got. The government just announced extending free school meals to every child on universal credit, and parents got in touch with me and said that is going to save them £500 a year. So there have been some wins, but there's a huge amount that I'm looking at it going, I'm really annoyed that a year in we haven't managed to change this or that. People are really proud of the place that they live, and there is this real sense that for too long we've been left behind and forgotten. And that's different in different areas. Obviously, I represent a very diverse constituency with 5 towns and about 100 villages. But if you look at places like Shildon, that lost its secondary school, but didn't just lose its secondary school, lost its Sure Start centres, lost a lot of its social infrastructure. Crook has lost a swimming pool. It's lost 2 youth centres. So there's places that have just felt completely hollowed out, and that's obviously an issue for people in Bishop or even people who live in the towns around. They look at their high street and everyone has these nostalgic memories of a time when it was bustling, and it just makes people feel depressed about where they live. So that's been a significant issue. Crime and antisocial behaviour in some areas and the way that impacts on people's lives, and it is significant. And again, in fact, one of our successes is we have got the funding to have more visible policing, which started this April, and I think we're starting to see that now in some areas that have been crime hotspots. So those issues come up. Also, just poverty, life being hard for people. And then, of course, there are the things where I'm a Labour MP, but things that my own government has done that I've had to give challenge back on, such as the cuts to winter fuel allowance, where I never had a problem with the idea that we take it away from richer people, from pensioners on more than the average income. But the moment that was announced, within 2 hours, I went and saw the chief secretary to the Treasury and said, "You've got the threshold too low. This is really going to hurt people that I represent." And it took a long time for us to get the change to that policy. I'm pleased that they adopted my proposals, but I have felt a little bit like I've spent the last 12 months putting out fires that I didn't expect to be putting out as well, and that's been disappointing.
What's the relationship like? I mean, obviously, I'm in Barney, in the centre of a rural area. What's your relationship like with the farming community? Because there was quite a bit of pushback on the proposals that came forward for inheritance tax and that sort of thing.
Yeah, actually, I feel like I've got a really good relationship with the farming community. We have quarterly forums that the NFU helps to organise, and where we get together. Like just 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were in a sheep barn in just above Frosterley for one of these, and I was really touched actually by the number of farmers afterwards who thanked me for the work that they see that I'm doing. And it likewise, the sort of gamekeepers and people who manage the grouse moors in the area as well. I spoke out in Parliament in support of rural jobs. Got a lot of flack for doing so from certain people, but I think that they feel that they've got in me an MP that is genuinely engaging with them and listening and fighting their corner. And it's one of the issues where I've kind of put my head above the parapet and spoken critically of the party's position as well. And I think people see that and appreciate it. And look, I'm not going to pretend that every farmer is a Labour voter. I think that would be a ridiculous claim to make. And I know that a lot of the people who I'm supporting probably won't vote for me at the next election because habitually they just don't tend to vote my way. But I think the important thing is when you're campaigning in an election, obviously you campaign under a party banner, but when you're an MP, you're there to represent all of your constituents, whatever their political affiliation, and the livelihoods of our farmers really matters to me. And they're not all rich. Granted, some are. Some are doing very well for themselves, but a lot of the farmers in our area haven't had a holiday in a decade. These are people who get up before they go to bed and work in all weathers, and that they do tough, hard jobs. And I really respect them for that. And I think that they're working people and they deserve representation.
Now, without wishing the summer recess away, what's kind of on the agenda for year 2 as MP?
So this first year is, like I said, it's been a sharp learning curve for me. And one of the things that I've learnt is that Parliament can suck your time away, and I've learned that I need to say no more often to a lot of invitations and a lot of people that demand 30 minutes of my time in order for us to focus. And so what I'm working on with my team, in fact, we have a team meeting on Monday, is we've developed a plan for change. And these are going to be sort of key goals that we want to achieve that will make a real difference in people's lives. And we're trying to focus our time more exclusively on those things rather than just getting sucked into every good cause, because the problem is there are a million good causes out there that could all demand your time. And so some of the things that I think are really significant on there, it's going to be really tough, but we have to do something about the state of our town centres, and regenerating those areas that have fallen into dereliction. And getting the money to do that's not going to be easy, but we need to make the case. We need to go out and fight for investment. So that's going to be tough. Another area where there's been no progress really in a year, and I thought there would be, is getting dentists back into the area. There are dentists I'm talking to who want to set up in our area, but we've got issues with the way that the NHS funding model operates and the ICB and the way that they're being supported. So there's some things that we need to do around that. I also want to make sure that we get funding for the early start, the Sure Start centres in our area. The current plan that the government has is only to give new ones to local authorities that don't already have them, which means, but they will upgrade the existing ones. But in my constituency, that means Woodhouse Close Family Hub gets an upgrade, but places like Shildon and Crook at the moment are not earmarked for any new investment. And I think that's a real problem. So that's a battle that I'm fighting, because those are significant towns with significant populations of children that are growing up with disadvantage. And so if we can do those things over the next 12 months, I'll be really happy. So regeneration, improving early years and childhood, and doing that stuff around the NHS as well, getting those services into the community that people need.
One final thing before we call time to this, and it's away from the actual job itself. In previous lives, I've worked alongside MPs as a journalist and such like that, and people, I think, perhaps don't realise the toll the job takes on family life. Have you managed to find a balance between the job and the family? Because you've got a young family and a growing family.
Yeah, not enough. You're right. One of the hardest parts of the job actually is that the public has this perception that we're all just sort of disinterested in them, all on a sort of gravy train. I mean, and I speak not just for myself, but MPs across all parties. That's not what I see. It is a very difficult job where you work very long hours. I work about 75 to 80 hours a week. So when I'm down in London, I'm doing 7 in the morning till probably beyond midnight without really stopping, Monday through Thursday, full days on Friday in the constituency, half days on Saturday. But what I do is I do try to have a hard stop on a Saturday afternoon. So Friday night I spend with the family, or having a date night with my wife, and then Saturday afternoon we try and always plan something to do with the kids in the afternoon, evening, and Sundays I fully take off as a day a week that I don't work. But then of course you're knackered because you've had a really long week, and then you've got to be dad, and so the tough part then is I've got to sort of keep the energy levels up to give time to the children. They do come down and stone me. The nice thing is our recess doesn't align with school holidays in the northeast. It does if you're in London, but actually that plays in my favour, because it means that the kids during the school holidays come down to London during the half term and spend time with me, and then the next week we're probably on recess, so I'm in the constituency more. But one of my goals for this year is I want to try to cut my hours to about 60-ish a week rather than 80, because I do think it's a bit unsustainable.
Sam, it's been fascinating chatting to you. Enjoy the summer as best you can with your poorly pot leg.
Thank you.
and good luck when Parliament starts again.
Thanks very much.